Hello and welcome. I did my research on LGBTQ2S inclusivity in the classroom, which is an important topic to think about if you are becoming a teacher. Chances are you will have a student in your class who is a part of this community, and so being able to create an environment where they feel safe and welcomed is so important. LGBTQ2S inclusivity emerged from a postmodernist perspective. Postmodernism is the belief that we must reject the idea that we can establish certain truths through rational thought, and in order to progress, we must recognize that people are far too diverse to be placed and treated according to categories. This also leads into queer theory. Judith Butler argued that these categories that people are placed in act as labels, and they fix our expectations about identity and behavior. Societal norms are determined, which further alienate members of the LGBTQ2S+ community. In fact, Kevin Kumashiro argues that even inclusion itself may not be enough, and that instead of just working on including everyone, we need to change the assumptions and practices that influence our students, especially to break the heteronormative systems our schools perpetuate. These societal norms are imposed in the hidden curriculum when we look at schools. We adhere typically to the cisgender heterosexual student as the normal through a lot of literature and content we share. Schools regularly assume that the gender of a student is based on their appearance, which teaches students that being LGBT is not the norm. Therefore, the K-12 school is not always effective at being inclusive. As a result of a Canada-wide study in 2021, 79% of trans students who had been the victims of physical harassment reported that teachers and staff were ineffective in addressing transphobic harassment. On a micro level, violence and discrimination against queer students is still prevalent. As a result of the same study, 62% of LGBTQ2S+ students felt unsafe at school. Inclusivity starts by addressing the cases of discrimination or harmful comments that students may make instead of sweeping it under the rug. And then on a macro level, we see that the Canadian school system is working towards inclusivity, pushing towards change. As schools normalize LGBTQ2S+ inclusivity, we will hopefully see a change in society that does not categorize or label individuals into groups like normal and the others. What can we do to achieve normalization? Deborah Britzman is a theorist that focuses on queer pedagogy and explains how there is a desire to ignore and flee what is felt as unpleased and danger. Understandably, inclusivity can be intimidating as a teacher. Even if you are trying to do the right thing, mistakes are bound to happen. I focused some of my research on my Teachable in English. Michelle Page conducted a study about why teachers are apprehensive about using LGBT literature. The consensus was that teachers were afraid of confrontation from parents or even fellow staff members. However, what we teach matters. If we exclude certain groups of students by a lack of representation, we are making them invisible. As an educator, we cannot possibly suggest that our care extends to some of our students rather than all of our students. Our students should not feel like ghosts, they should feel seen. Staley and Leonardi suggest that harnessing our emotions as teachers, whether it is fear, self-consciousness, or maybe defensiveness, is an important step towards inclusivity. Understanding the why to our emotions can then help us inform a better how do I take action. They also mention the process of unlearning, which is where we can recognize as a teacher where we may contribute to systems of queer inequality. Most of us probably grew up in the school system, which has perpetuated sexual orientation and gender identity norms. So how do we learn not to contribute to this? I would suggest a few strategies to start implementing. Representing your LGBT students in class text and content is a great start. Giving your students a form to fill out their name and preferred gender pronouns is also helpful, and familiarizing yourself with the proper terminology on SOGI 123 is a good practice. These strategies will help with socialization. Schools must make it clear that diversity is celebrated. By teaching and demonstrating to your students that there is no norm that we adhere to in education, students are able to acknowledge one another as humans instead of those categories that Butler mentioned. I interviewed one of my former high school teachers, and he shared that having his students benefit from his inclusive practices has been really rewarding. He has had students trust him enough to come out to him, and he reflects on how it is really cool knowing that he has made a difference in those students' lives. Some ways to support families and students of the LGBTQ2S community is by staying educated. Soji123 is a great source that covers everything to do with queer inclusivity in the classroom. This website can be shared with parents for further learning as well. Teachers may also have the chance to attend Soji123 conferences. Leaving your door open is also a good practice that my interviewee mentioned. This allows your classroom to be a safe space if LGBT students need it. Not to mention, taking initiative to establish a Genders and Sexualities Alliance will benefit students so that they have a safe space to talk to peers comfortably. Now, where does the Christian perspective come into play? Julia Smith dives into how we can approach our LGBT students as God's creation. Your students are created in the image of God, and God's image-bearing is not connected to his sex. Therefore, all students deserve to be treated as such. Despite all of this, I do not want to spread the message that inclusivity is easy to achieve. It is a change that takes time, growth, and learning, but it is a change that shows our students that they matter. All of our students matter, and only our actions can reflect this message. Thank you.